Hi everyone, and welcome to Playtime Online. This is the Institute of Play's webinar series that allows us to connect and share our work with you. I'm Amna Siddiqui, the producer and moderator of this program. Today we're discussing SimCityEDU, a new community that enables teachers to create and share SimCity-based lesson plans. We'll learn how to make the most of this exciting resource, as well as how to approach designing video game-based classroom curriculum. We'll also touch on how you can hang out with the creators of SimCityEDU or win copies of the SimCity game for your classroom by participating in GlassLab's Master Planner Curriculum Contest. So before we kick off today's discussion, let's meet our speakers. We're joined by members from GlassLab, the team behind SimCityEDU, along with the Histrionix Learning Company, who have seeded the community with 4 very exciting unit plans. So let's have everyone briefly introduce themselves. Matt, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Matt, and I am the producer here at GlassLab.
Cool. And could you briefly talk about your role in SimCityEDU?
Yeah, so as the producer, I am kind of the person who keeps the wheels turning here at GlassLab, whether it be with our game products or our tools that we put out to teachers to help them engage their students more. And so I was responsible for managing the development of the website and also working with Amna to add new features to the website based on what the community wants.
Great. And Rick?
Hello, I'm Rick Brennan. I am the CEO of Histrionix Learning Company and the co-founder. And our company, Histrionix, myself and Mr. Jason Darnell, who's also on the session, were hired to create the initial curriculum catalog for the SimCityEDU team. And so we have four units that we've provided, and today we'll preview at least one of them so that teachers and users can get a sense of how to use this innovative teaching tool.
Great. And Jason?
Hi, my name is Jason Darnell. I'm the president of Histrionix Learning Company. As Rick said, we've seeded the browser with our SimCityEDU with 4 unit plans. We're really excited to share with you guys.
Awesome. And then Seth, do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, Seth, you need to unmute yourself. I don't think we can hear you right now. I still can't hear you.
All right, trying again.
Oh, great.
Okay, sorry guys. I'm Seth Corrigan. I'm the Director of Evaluation and Education here at GlassLab. And I oversee much of the learning curriculum that we're creating here for our new game products, as well as much of the assessment work that we do.
Great. Well, it's really wonderful having all of you here, and I'd like to remind our viewers that if at any point you'd like to ask today's speakers a question, just click on the blue participate text under this video on the right-hand side, and we'll be spending the last 20 minutes or so of the webinar answering your questions during the Q&A portion. So let's kick off today's conversation with you, Matt, and I'd really like for you to tell us a little bit about the mission behind GlassLab and how SimCityEDU came to fruition at the lab.
Sure. So GlassLab is a culmination of several things. Really, there's been a lot of research that's been done regarding the way games can help students learn. And not only the way that games can help students learn, but the way games can help students assess, both students and teachers, assess very unique skills that are typically very hard to assess. And so the idea is that in order to, in order to build a good game, you need a couple of different things, and that's money and talent. And so GlassLab is a partnership between the Gates Foundation and the MacArthur Foundation, supported by one of the great, if not the greatest, game company in the world, Electronic Arts, and we have several other partners. The ETS, excuse me, the Educational Testing Service, Pearson, the ESA, several partners that are supporting us. And basically our charter is to build tools that allow teachers and students to be engaged in the classroom together and to really use games to an effect for both learning and assessment purposes. And so when we first got here, what we did is we really looked at the entire EA portfolio and asked ourselves what game would be best for us to work with and modify to do what we're here to do. And the overwhelming choice by all of our team members here was for SimCity, and it's not hard to see why. There's so much learning that's happening in SimCity naturally, from learning how to budget, to learning about civics, to learning about environmental issues. There's really no limit to the amount of learning that is being done for any player that's playing in SimCity. So we decided to start working with that game. And the more we dug into it and the more we started to reach out to teachers for feedback on what we were doing, the more we realized that teachers were already using this game to teach in their classrooms. And so one of the things that we want to do here at GlassLab is not just put out games, but give teachers the tools that they need to use games effectively in the classroom. And so we thought to ourselves, you know what? Teachers are already using this game. Why don't we help them use it the best way we can? And that was kind of the genesis of SimCityEDU. So what we wanted to do is create a website where teachers can, number one, participate in a community of other teachers that are using this, and also create and share lesson plans around the game. And we feel like there's just so much opportunity for learning within the classroom, especially with the new game. And there's just so much happening. And to be able to take a student and put them into the context of such a complex system and teach them about what's going on just is really ripe for things that teachers are already doing in the classroom. And so it was really our effort to support the teachers that either are currently or want to use SimCity to engage their students and use it as a tool for teaching. You're muted, Amna.
Thanks, Matt. Very quickly, could you talk about how GlassLab's SimCityEDU effort is separate from EA and the actual SimCity game?
How the SimCityEDU effort is separate?
Yes.
Sure. So again, there's a great commercial game that EA just put out on March 5th. And that's put out for no other reason than for players to have a really good time playing the game. And again, so what we wanted to do is give teachers who see SimCity as an opportunity to teach certain skills, again, whether it be math skills or science skills or civics competencies, we wanted to give them the opportunity to do that in the most effective way possible. So SimCityEDU, as of right now, is not anything more than a tool, a website that teachers can use to use that commercial game in its plainest form, in the way it was released solely for fun purposes, to use that website to teach in the classroom.
Awesome. So I want to get into the need for this type of teacher community and the need for video games themselves as a classroom resource. And I'm wondering if Seth, if you could talk about the advantages of using video games for classroom learning and why it's important to have an accompanying unit or lesson plan.
Well, I think there are a couple of big ideas there that we might want to talk about. One is this idea that, for the most part in the classroom, what we see from students is sort of gas pedal half down in terms of motivation. So a lot of students are engaged in the classroom, and teachers are doing a great job of engaging them, but there's still a sense or an intuition that we could be getting much more engagement from students. And so one idea is what happens when students are 100% engaged, 100% motivated for long stretches of time. how does that change the situation in the classroom? And how does that change students' learning? And so I think this opportunity is one where we stand a chance to begin answering questions like that. So that's one piece where I think this notion of games in the classroom starts to suggest that we might be able to change the way students engage with the material over long lengths of time and the kinds of learning that we see. The second piece is, how does the curriculum surround and support that learning? And I think while games provide a wonderful chance for students to engage with material, content material, material that has to do with things like domain-specific examples of reasoning, argumentation within science, argumentation within social studies, and so on. You want to have a surround that supports that learning, that formalizes it in a way, so that kids are gaining the vocabulary that they need to talk about the discipline and talk about the content in the ways that the discipline does, and they're beginning to formalize the ways that those disciplines reason about those topics. So I think those are two entry points into sort of a conversation about what games add. I'd like to suggest a third one, which is there's a constant dialogue going on in the classroom. Sometimes it's teacher-student focused, sometimes it's student-to-student focused. Sometimes there are combinations of those conversations going on. And I'd like to suggest that there's a role for games in really feeding those conversations and making them rich places for learning as well.
Thank you. And Matt, I'm wondering if you could talk about some of the current features of the SimCityEDU site. It's made a lot of progress since it first launched at the beginning of March. So if you could just walk us through.
Sure. I'll share my screen here. So, can you guys see me? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Great. So yeah, we launched SimCityEDU beta on March 5th. And since then, what we've been doing is, number one, just tweaking the things that already exist on the site to make it more user-friendly. So we wanted to start with the login and just make it as good as possible. So when you look at the login here, you have a way of either logging in with a unique credential, or you can log in using Facebook. So I'm going to log in using Facebook because that's just a really simple and easy way for me to both, number one, log in, but also just participate in the community. So the next thing is, you go to browse here, and you're able to look at all the units and lessons that teachers have already put in SimCity. There's a couple here. There's also the wonderful ones that our friends at Histrionix here have put in as well, have created. And there's a way to rate these lessons, so you can take a look at them and see which ones that the community of teachers and educators who are engaging in SimCityEDU, in the SimCityEDU community, see which ones they think are best and most useful. If you look on the right here, you also see what grades the particular unit or lesson is for, what subject it's for, what topic it's for, and we can just do a deeper dive here into what you can see. So you can toggle between the different lessons that compose a unit. You can see any files that a teacher or an educator may want to attach to the lesson or unit. We're able to, one of the things that we've added since we launched is an ability to export a lesson to a PDF, or export, as you can see, the entire unit to a PDF, and just print it out very simply, very easily, very cleanly. There's also what we call our remix feature, and it allows us to copy and edit a unit. So all I have to do is click this button, and in a moment, it's just loading. My internet's a little slow here, but in a moment, as you'll see, now I have this in my own profile, and I'm able to change it as I see fit if I'm an educator, and maybe if I have block scheduling instead of typical 45-minute periods, I can change the lesson based on that. I can tweak it a little bit based on my teaching style, the type of classroom that I have. If I think that this particular lesson is well suited for a subject, if I'm a science teacher and it just happens to be an ELA subject and I still want to use it, I can do that as well. And then I can republish it, as you see here, as my own lesson. And it just allows a lot of freedom within the community to feed off of one another in a sort of crowdsourced way and really build powerful, powerful learning tools based on what the rest of the community is doing. And you know, if I go to create here, it's the same thing. I'm able to create a unit. Again, attach whatever files I see fit. If I want, and Rick and Jason will get into the sort of ancillary materials that you may want to attach to a unit or lesson, but I'm able to attach any files I want, from PDFs to Word documents to PowerPoint. I can also, if there's a particular screenshot in the game maybe that I want to take, so for example, if we're talking about City Hall, and you're trying to teach a lesson about City Hall, you can take a snapshot of the City Hall to use it to help students put into context what a City Hall might look like, or you can put that right up against a picture of your own City Hall in your own hometown, and you can make as many lessons within a unit as you like, or you can just create one lesson if you want. You don't have to create an entire 5-day unit. And that's really the crux of it, and it's pretty simple, but at the same time, we feel very powerful, and we're really looking forward to seeing how the community of educators engage with this and use it. And based on that use and based on your feedback, that's what we're going to be putting into the next iteration of this website. We're going to be constantly paying attention to what you want, what you think is useful, you know, what you think the site needs, and really attempting to build that in and to make this the most useful tool in your classroom that we can. And I'll switch back over here.
Great, thanks, Matt. So let's spend some time exploring the heart of SimCityEDU, and that is the user-generated unit and lesson plans. And Rick and Jason, like you said earlier, that you both contributed curriculum to SimCityEDU. And we're going to look at a couple of the lesson plans or unit plans that you designed. But before we jump into that, I want to ask you both if you had ever designed curriculum for video games before this, and what that experience was like.
Well, years ago, Jason and I sort of gamified our own classrooms. I mean, by trade, Jason and I are teachers. We each have 13 years experience in a public school classroom. We both taught social studies, and we very early in our career, I think I'm speaking for both of us, saw the power of games in the classroom, not just, let's say, video games, but just game dynamics in general. They seem to more or less electrify the classroom whenever we introduce gameplay into our classroom. So we essentially gamified our entire state-mandated curriculum and saw great results. As a result of that, we've actually started our own company, obviously, Histrionix Learning Company, and we've been hired by a local public charter school here in Houston to help gamify their entire campus, all of the curriculums for each teacher. So we're working with them doing that very thing right now. So to answer your question, that's a very long way of saying yes, we're in the thick of it. And in fact, we were designing some curriculum around sim societies when we got the call to join the SimCityEDU team. So as longtime SimCity fans, it was sort of a dream come true for us as far as the job goes. But yes, we have, I think, significant experience in this sort of thing. Now, that said, I don't think you have to have that level of experience necessarily to contribute to this tool, obviously. Matt said it, I think, very well. It's a very simple tool. It's customizable. And, you know, you can upload units, lesson plans, anything in between. So it accommodates all types of teachers, all skill levels. And hopefully we'll start to see this great catalog grow and grow over the coming weeks and months.
Great. So how about you walk us through a couple of unit plans that are currently up on the SimCityEDU site?
Okay. If I could, before we get to one of the units, I do want to mention a couple of things that we, I think, brought to the designs that we sort of embedded from the beginning that we thought were sort of classroom-ready, teacher-friendly designs. So one of those is even the idea of these units, these 5-day units. Basically, a unit is 5 45-minute lessons, and again, many teachers have about that amount of time in a classroom. Jason and I taught in a block schedule, so we had twice that. But even despite that, you just kind of double up. So it accommodates all sorts of teachers in their time frames, which is my point. Beyond that, we created 4 lessons, or 4 units, I should say. One that aligns to sort of a math lesson, or a unit, a science unit. And then we had 2 sort of cross-curricular units of social studies plus English language arts. So a point there is really regardless of your discipline, you could use our lesson plan. So we wanted it to be widely accessible. On top of that, they're sort of stackable. You can teach 1 unit. You could teach 2 2-week units. If you want to put all of them together in a certain order of operations, you can teach 1 1-month long unit. So we wanted them to be kind of changeable to teacher circumstances. And we thought that would help make these lessons more user-friendly for our teacher friends who have thousands of factors to consider at any one time. So those are some of the concerns or teacher experience that we brought to, I think, some of the early designs of the lessons. And then beyond that, we decided to lesson plan around the initial steps of the gameplay. So for example, one of the first things that you do when you play SimCity is you have to connect your road system to the highway, right? And that's in fact the first step that you have to take in the game before you can do much of anything else. So we decided to, rather than just have that be something that a student does very quickly, these lessons should bring some thought and forethought to those decisions, right? So in that lesson, around this first step of gameplay, road systems and creating them, we embedded geometry. So that's actually our math lesson. You learn circumference of a circle, and you learn Pythagorean theorem, for example, among other things, while you're designing your sort of intricate, hopefully beautiful and thoughtful road system, right? Because that's sort of the backbone of your SimCity eventually. So we wrote a lesson about that. That's our math lesson. The next step is you have to zone those roads, right? So you have to provide commercial, industrial, and residential zones. So that's something that, you know, again, it helps create a community. The way you space these things out or cluster them in your SimCity will have long-term effects to the kinds of cities that you create. So you want those to be thoughtful decisions. And so what we had the students do there is to sort of assign these zones, but also talk to the Sim citizens who are in the game and learn about popular government and how they want their city to be constructed. So they have to balance more or less what they want to build in their city versus what their citizens may want, which is a real-to-life concern in popular government, for example, in democratic government. And then they write about their decisions by creating a thoughtful essay to explain why it is that they are zoning their city the way that they are. So again, everything is done with forethought and analysis. The third step is then to create sort of an electrical grid. You have to electrify your city by choosing what types of power plants that you want to create this grid of yours. We call that lesson Power to the People. And that's the lesson that we're going to go over sort of step by step in just a second. But that's, if you're going to teach all 4 of these lessons back to back to back to back, that would be the third step, because electrifying your city is the next step in the process in the gameplay. Once you've done that, you're more or less ready to build. And so there's so many choices, real-to-life choices of what you should build first. Should you build a hospital? Should you build a school and whatnot? That we had the students in this 4th and final lesson or unit that we created sort of prioritize public works and bring forethought to that decision, and then write about it again so that they can explain themselves in the written word. So that's how we decided to proceed, in the hope that once you get started in the gameplay as a teacher in your classroom, you will go farther than that, and then you can add more lessons on top of the ones that we've provided already. So those are that runs the whole gamut of the lessons that we provided. I'm going to walk through one of the units very quickly, and then Jason will talk about the supplemental materials that we provided, because we wanted the teachers to have everything they needed without having to create anything additional to use these lessons. So we have all those things there for them. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the website now. So I'm going to share screen. And can everyone see my screen now? Okay, so here's the home page of the SimCityEDU website. Matt went through some of the login features. You just hit the browse button. You see the lessons here. I mentioned really all of them, but we're going to focus on this one here, which is Power of the People, which is our science-based lesson about energy and energy consumption, costs, and consequences. You see on the right-hand panel there, it says that it's grades 6 through 8, and it's a science or physical science lesson. So we click on there. Here you get the overview on the left-hand side. It's all divided by days, so it's very, very simple. We start with the overview. See, I'll zoom in a little bit if that is helpful. So this is called Power to the People, and as I mentioned, they'll study fossil fuels, nuclear power, and renewable energy sources, including wind and solar, because they have to create a grid in their SimCity to support everything that they build. And of course, there are consequences that go along with our energy consumption, and these are real-to-world consequences that we're asking our students to deal with here or think about. This next field is the learning goals. The learning goals, as you can see, this is quite substantial. These are the learning goals for every single day. So all 5 learning goals are provided here. And you can see there are many. They're divided by day if you go to the day section on the left-hand side, but in the overview, they're all there. The essential questions are the kinds of questions that students would be able to answer by the end of this lesson. So what are fossil fuels, nuclear energy, wind energy, and solar energy, and how do they produce electrical energy? And it gets down to more nuance beyond there. But again, by the end of this unit of 5 days, 45-minute lessons, these are the kinds of questions the students should be able to answer. The unit level assessments, we for the most part have tried to provide formative assessments, but we do have an energy pre-knowledge and student survey, which is more or less gauging student pre-knowledge and then having the teacher be able to compare by the end of the unit what the student learned. And these are materials that Jason will go over when he has a chance to speak in just a few minutes. And I'll keep this very brief, but I want to make sure that everyone knows how to use this tool. And so this is day 1 now. At the top, it tells you it's a 45-minute lesson, as I mentioned before. You get the lesson description here. So, all these windows, you simply, click here, and they sort of pop up and down. The materials needed, it lists here all the materials you would need. All those materials are listed on the right-hand side where the supplementals are. So here's where the student would have the pre-knowledge survey that I mentioned. There's a vocabulary assignment, so the new concepts and terms are able to be identified by the students. And we have an infographic here about electrical grids. Differentiation, we focused on English language learners, as we were asked to do, and provide subtle tips on how to reach out to students who are learning English as a language. We wanted to make sure that our lessons are usable by as many teachers and students as possible. So the differentiation screen will give teachers tips on how to teach under more difficult circumstances. For example, perhaps if a student in the class can't speak English, then this is where you might find some help. The start of the class is more like the beginning of the class, the focus activity, for example. In this case, it's this pre-knowledge survey, which starts it all off, so the teachers can know from the beginning more or less what their students already know and what they don't know, which will help them pinpoint their instruction. The guided practice is where the teachers more or less begin their teaching. So in this lesson, we have new concepts and terms that we ask the teachers to be familiar with, and they're going to do that by creating original pieces of art. In any event, the guided practice always tells what the teacher instruction part of the period is like, and other sections will provide more detail. The independent practice is once the students have gotten instruction, they understand what to do, what they do on their own. And so each of these windows labeled independent instruction will tell you what the students will be doing on their own in that particular period. And there's also a time that we give so that you know more or less how to pace your instruction. You know, all teacher-friendly designs, hopefully. We've even provided questions for teachers to use throughout the period, so that they have checks for understanding questions, sort of formative assessment type questions. We put them here. The closing is the last thing you do before the end of the day. So here, after the students have studied these new concepts and terms, they've created their own original artwork. They share this artwork with the classroom and explain the meaning behind it. And there's a short Q&A involved with that as well, which, like I said, ends the period. We were asked to provide beyond the classroom type activities, also called homework. So this is having them to take, usually what we try to do is to have this be taken outside the classroom. So real world type things. Is your home powered by a renewable or a non-renewable energy? Maybe they know that by now, maybe they don't, but by the end of the unit they certainly would. But it's inward. It's them thinking about their own world, their own reality on a day-to-day basis. Everything we did is aligned to the Common Core standards and the California Science Standards, so you can see exactly grade by grade here what curriculum that we are correlating to. Always very important, obviously. SimCity setup. This is how you use the game in the instruction day by day. This unit actually has gameplay on day number 5, but every single day the teacher can use it as a teaching tool. We envision maybe through a smartboard projection, maybe through your own laptop. I'm not sure what scenario you have in your own school, but the SimCity setup is how you can use the game as a teaching tool beyond just the play element of it. Relevant essential questions. Again, this is giving sort of the crux of the matter. So what are fossil fuels, nuclear energy, wind energy, and solar energy, and how do they produce electrical energy? These are the basics. Again, this is day 1. And then the learning goals for day 1, so that you can sort of see what the student should be able to do day by day. We also provided, perhaps you teach in teams. A lot of people teach in teams. The other steps, this is how you can differentiate the lesson in a different way by providing an individual setup versus a group type setup. So if you go through all of these, essentially this is day 1 of this five-day unit. And let's see. If we go to day 2, you see the same thing more or less. I'm going to keep it short here and just give a summary, but day 2 is more or less focusing on fossil fuels and the consequences of fossil fuel usage. Not only how fossil fuels produce energy, but the consequences of their usage, which is something that they need to be thinking about as they create their city, because their city could become very polluted, for example, and that would affect the culture building of the city and more. So day 2 is focused on fossil fuels, and it has the same sort of outline, so I don't want to go through each element again, but it essentially follows the same strategy. Day 3 then focuses on nuclear energy. So again, how is nuclear energy produced, and what are the consequences for that? And then day 4 brings in renewables, specifically wind power and solar power, which are featured in the gameplay. And again, the consequences of that. Because in the end, they have to be able to support their city through an electrical grid that they create, whether it's all renewables, partly fossil fuels, they team up with a player by remote. Whatever it is, they have to be able to create the grid, and rather than just get it done so they can start building, we wanted them to bring forethought, to bring analysis, and make thoughtful decisions. And day 5, you revisit the survey so that you get a post-knowledge wrap-up, and then day 5 is the gameplay, and the goal of day 5 would be to create your first power plants, to actually buy them, place them in your city, and begin building this electrical grid, which will help you beyond that. So I know that's a very long-winded answer, but that is one of our units. We call it Power to the People. And what I'd like to do now is to hand it over to Jason so he can talk about some of the supplemental materials. So I'm going to go ahead and get off the screen share now. And Jason, if you want to take over now and talk about some of these supplementals, it's all you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason. I'm going to go ahead and screen share real quick. Excuse me. All right, so when you go back to the website, let's go to day one, and let's look at the materials needed for day one. We have the energy pre-knowledge and student survey. We have the energy vocabulary etch-a-sketch, and we have a smart grid infographic. Let's go ahead over here and click on the SimCity pre-survey so you can get a look at what the survey looks like. Now, we tried to make this as standardized as we could. Students have to take standardized tests, and on those tests, questions look very similar to this. So we wanted this to be used in as many classrooms as possible, and so that was our thoughts behind designing this. The first 10 questions are just a simple vocabulary to test the students' pre-knowledge on these key vocabulary terms. Part 2 is a Venn diagram where they compare and contrast the different sources of energy that they're going to learn about. And then there are some questions they need to answer after looking over some infographics that we've supplied that are at the bottom of the quiz, such as this one. This one is on the world energy supply. So how well can students comprehend these infographics and then answer these multiple choice questions? And then finally, one of the more interesting parts, we not only wanted to gauge the students' pre-knowledge of this content area, but how they feel about it, if it interests them or not, or if it interests them more when they're done when they're done with the unit. So that is the knowledge pre-survey. I want to take a look now at the energy vocabulary etch-a-sketch. So the energy vocabulary etch-a-sketch is 2 pages. First page has 8 terms, and the second page has 8 terms that they need to create a original piece of art to help explain this definition that's been given to them of this key term. When in designing this document, I thought this document would look nice on any sort of this interactive display you have, or just projected in the classroom. If you had an interactive whiteboard or a smart board, students could interact by writing in these boxes, or drawing their quick sketches of these definitions in these boxes, and we thought it would work really well in a classroom that had that ability. This is the second page of the vocabulary. Once again, there's 8 terms. And once again, we thought this would look beautiful on some sort of display in the classroom or interactive whiteboard. This is the smart grid infographic that is used to introduce what a smart grid is before the students start thinking about how they're going to electrify their city. So let's go back to the website, and let's go ahead and look at the materials for day 2. I'm going to click on day 2. We have the energy fossil fuels chart, and then we have 2 more infographics. So if we go over to the energy chart right here, it's a PDF, and click on it, this chart is landscape, and it has 2 sides. As you can see, one side is kind of the polluted side, which is the fossil fuel side, and then the second side is the more beautiful sunny day of alternative energy side. So on this chart, students are going to use the infographics supplied as well as any information the teacher supplies to give positive consequences of using this type of energy, and then of course negative consequences of using this type of energy, and then how SimCity portrays this in the video game. So there is a type of energy supplying building in SimCity that you can purchase for your city that will produce one of these 6 types of energy here in this chart. Once again, this chart really on an interactive whiteboard, having kids maybe even write in green or red on both sides as a class to complete this, we thought would be very, very effective in a classroom. Just to show you the infographics that are supplied to help fill out this chart, we have this infographic that you saw on the previous pre-student survey, so they see this again. And then we also have the energy advantage and disadvantage infographic. Let me zoom in on this. This infographic is going to go through each of the different types of energy, and it's going to give you the positives of using that type of energy and then the negatives. And it goes through coal, nuclear, gas, oil, hydroelectric, wind, solar. It even goes into biomass, hydrogen, and fusion energy. Let me zoom back in, or zoom back out. So as you can see, it's very, very, very simple to use these documents on the side. We tried to make them as user-friendly as we can for as many classrooms as we could. And I'd like, at this point, to pass it on over to back to Amna.
Thanks, Jason. So I have a couple of questions, and I think any of you can really answer them. And that is, so when users are going to create their own lesson plans, can they also upload their own supplemental files? Is that something that they can do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Matt, I believe earlier showed how you can easily upload files or screenshots or pictures into the website.
Awesome. And then another thing I noticed was all of the unit plans that you created, they're very, very thorough. And I'm wondering if you know, when teachers sign on and they go to create their lesson plans, if their units necessarily need to be just as comprehensive. I'm wondering if maybe Seth, you can take this, because my understanding is it's actually quite flexible, and people don't need to be so thorough.
No, that's absolutely right. In fact, you know, if you think about the way the site was built, it was really built with teachers in mind that are invested in using SimCity in their classrooms and want a chance to create lesson plans. You absolutely do not have to have a complete lesson plan with all these different features that Rick and Jason have pointed out. That's not necessary. The beautiful graphics and so on, it can all be a work in progress. So one of the ways that we'd hope the site would get used is that over time, teachers build their lesson plans, they add to them, they take away, they revise, and so on, based on what they're learning. So stakes are very low for teachers.
Great. And can people also create and delete their own sections? Is that something, or okay. So are they able to create different titles?
Sure, I could take that one.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do is we give the teacher a template with a lot of different sections, from title down to what type of assessments they want to use, so on and so forth. Those are optional, so they have the option of not using those, and if they don't use those, that doesn't show up in the site that those are empty fields. It's simply, there's a button that we provide the educator that allows them to simply turn that field off, and they can use as many or as few of the parts of the template as they like. They can also add their own custom fields if there's something that maybe we missed, or is that is not a typical part of a lesson but a particular teacher likes to use. They can add a custom field, and it populates just the same into their unit.
And I'm also wondering, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to piggyback on something that Matt said. I uploaded, I was the one that uploaded most of the units on the website, and like he said, it's very, very easy to use, very intuitive. You can create whatever fields you want. I just wanted to just say he's absolutely right with what he said.
Great. And I'm wondering what subjects the SimCity game lends itself most to, and if educators are necessarily, like, if they should design outside of that, are they welcome to? Is it possible? What are your recommendations? Oh, Rick, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I'm sorry. There we go. Matt said it earlier. SimCity is a very learning-rich environment. So I think I mentioned this in one of the earlier interviews or something. At a certain point, I had to stop writing ideas down for lessons because there were so many of them. So all teachers should be able to find a connection to their curriculum into the game without too much effort, I don't think. So I think it's widely accessible as a teaching tool. I think it's a major step in the right direction, and we're planning on bringing it to our school as soon as possible so that we can start seeing the benefits in our students.
Great. And what tips can we give our viewers when it comes to writing curriculum for the SimCityEDU community, just to make it easier for them?
I think a suggestion I might make is, consider that you have a vast audience, perhaps, and be thinking about people with different realities than you, let's say, in mind, especially if you're someone who's at a high-tech school. I mean, some schools are high-tech, low-tech, no-tech. And so that's something that you might want to consider. I think also just walking your reader through the process, step by step. Lesson plans lend themselves to that type of writing, so as long as you just take it slow, take it simple, and customize as needed. It's a fail-safe type system. We wrote lessons that sort of used every feature, more or less, or all of the pre-assigned fields, just to show how they might be used. But obviously, you don't have to do that. It can be something much smaller. It can be a one-day type of lesson. It's very much a changeable type tool.
Great, and we are running out of time, but like everybody knows if they visited the SimCityEDU website, the site is in beta right now, and I don't think it would be fair to our viewers or early SimCityEDU adopters to ignore that fact. But GlassLab, they have big plans for the community, and I'm wondering if, Matt, you could very quickly, just kind of go over some of the features that people can look forward to in the future.
Sure, sure. So one of the most important things as we started building the site was that the teachers would be able to align their units and lessons to both the Common Core state standards and their own state standards. And so right now, actually as we speak, we are working on building a feature that allows you to choose from a number of standards. Choose from a standards picker of all the Common Core, or again, enter your own custom standard based on the particular state that you're in. We also, a feature that I missed, we have a discussion feature that allows you to use your Facebook credentials to create a discussion within the site. That's very, very cool. And speaking to community, I think another thing that many educators will be really happy with is we are working on integrating SimCityEDU into the Edmodo environment. So if you're using Edmodo, you'll be able to use that community to access SimCityEDU. And as both we and Edmodo grow, we'll be using more and more of their features to really make SimCityEDU a robust Edmodo environment. So other than that, part of what makes, I think, the way we approach things here at GlassLab great is we are always talking to and listening to the user. That is a game design principle. It's a GlassLab principle. It's it's just something that we live by. And so, like I said before, what we want to do is just what we want is just use the site, give us your feedback, tell us what you think, tell us what you want, and we will do our best to figure out what the community is looking for and to implement that.
Great, and with that, I think we should move on to the Q&A portion. So the first question comes from Jesus, and he is wondering about, I think it's Rick and Jason's game, whether it can be done on a massive multiplayer online, or whether it's done as a massive multiplayer online. And he would like to see how it would work in a collaborative setting.
I think I can give this a go. That is one of the things about the new SimCity that I'm most intrigued with myself. How this multiplayer is going to be used in the classroom, how collaboration is now, you have limitless possibilities now to collaborate now that students can work in these multiplayer regions. To be honest, I'm interested to see what these teachers come up with and put on the website, because I would really love to see what can be done with that. I know that wasn't the best answer, but I mean, to be honest, I'm really interested to see how that's going to work.
Great, thank you. So the next question comes from Mark, and he asks, can I use older versions of SimCity to create lesson plans for my classroom, or do I need to use the latest release?
Sure, I think I can take that. So you absolutely can. And teachers have been doing it for years, in fact, which is, again, the genesis of SimCityEDU. We believe that the newest version provides the most opportunity for learning. It is by far the most robust SimCity game that has been put out. That being said, absolutely, use the old SimCity if that's what you have at your disposal. You may want to signify that that's what you're using when you create a lesson plan, just so other educators know that you're using SimCity 4, and if they're using it as well, then they can use that lesson. Definitely.
The next question is from Stephen, and he asks, can you talk about the copy and edit unit feature? What is the purpose, and does it make it easier for me to create my own curriculum?
Sure, I guess I could take that one too. I hate to hog the mic here. So the copy and edit feature is a feature, that's the whole idea behind it, is that it allows teachers to very quickly take a lesson and copy it and tailor it to their own classroom. And so, you know, what's the purpose? The purpose is to give you as a teacher, as an educator, the tool. Of all the talking we've done to teachers, the one thing that we have heard over and over again is that your most precious resource is time. And we want to do everything we can to help you conserve that time and not waste it. And so that was our idea behind the remix, or the copy and edit feature, is to just allow you to see something you like very quickly, copy and edit it, and republish it based on your particular classroom needs and affordances. Thanks, Matt.
So another question is from Audrey, and I think we briefly touched on this, but I'm still going to ask it. I am an art teacher and have always been a huge fan of SimCity. Are you looking for teachers to contribute curriculum outside of STEM subjects? If so, how might I go about creating a SimCity-based lesson plan for my art students?
I think I can take that. I mean, Jason and I are someone who I think we both love art. We've always incorporated it into our classroom, even though we didn't teach art. And some of our unit plans incorporate fine art features as pieces of the lessons. So yes, to answer the questions, yes, definitely we're outside of just STEM. I think there are many different ways that you could go about creating art-based lessons for students. We've provided some examples, but one of the lessons that we didn't create was actually a poetry lesson, which is outside of STEM as well. So we were even thinking about ways of teaching poetry writing through this, and simply, you know, had too many ideas and had to cut one back. So the short answer is yes. Obviously, we're looking for teachers of all stripes. Art teachers would be tailor-made for this type of thing, and I would love to see how someone who is focused intently on art could come up with a daily lesson or a longer unit that is art-centered, maybe more than what we've provided. But we did try to include even those, our art friends, our teacher friends, in our units currently.
Yeah, I just want to add something quickly to that, which is leading up to the release of SimCity, the creators, the Maxis Studio, were actually using the really cool road features and zoning features to create cities that actually looked like peace signs and were words like love spelled out with different colors and things like that, all using simply the tools that a typical user has. And they were very much a work of art from what I've seen. So if you actually want to go to the SimCity website, they have those in there, and you can take a look, and I think it'll spark a lot of ideas for art teachers.
We were actually very inspired by that with some of our lesson plans. So the lesson plan that we provided about designing the road grid, for example, is very much inspired by what you just mentioned, specifically with the artistic minded city designs.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question is from April, and she asks, When will EA start offering classroom discounts? Until then, how do you propose teachers start creating and sharing SimCity curriculum in the interim?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we're not able to comment on the pricing at this time. I would suggest just going and buying a copy, and starting that way, you're able to save games, save sessions within that one game that allow students to create their own cities and save them within a single game. So you can have multiple students. Although it would be different sessions of play, you can have multiple students creating their own cities and creating their own artifacts that you can save. And so just because you have one copy doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use it within your classroom. And as I believe Rick or Jason mentioned earlier, I think one of the really cool possibilities, and one of the things that I'm really looking forward to seeing, whether or not teachers do, is using SimCity on an interactive whiteboard and using it to put things into context for students. And so that only requires one copy.
Thanks, Matt. So we are out of time. Before we go, I want to briefly talk about GlassLab's exciting master plan curriculum contest. We're inviting educators to design and submit their own SimCity-based unit plans. The classroom subjects and how many lesson plans you choose to design is totally up to you. The grand prize, it includes a trip for two to the San Francisco Bay Area to visit GlassLab and consult with the team on their next game. And other prizes include copies of the new SimCity game for your classroom. And for more information on that, just scroll to the very bottom of this page and you'll find a link to the contest. I think it ends sometime at the end of April. The details are on the PDF after you click the link. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Please join us for the next episode of Playtime Online, which is April 10th. We'll be hearing from New York City and Chicago Quest School teachers, designers, and students. It's going to be a lively episode, and it's dedicated to beating the boss during the week-long intensive known as Boss Level. You can discover the ins and outs of system thinking as teams showcase their place-tested projects. So for updates on Playtime, please sign up for our mailing list. Just click on the Join Us button at the top of this page. Thanks for watching, everyone. And if you like what we're doing, please spread the word. Have a great afternoon. See you guys.